Do you want to be healthier, yet you just don't know what to do? All these shows telling you this and that, but nothing seems to work. Well, listen close. Golden State Media Concepts has got something great for you. The Health and Wellness Podcast dedicated to workout trends, healthy eating habits, diet, and everything about healthy living. Join us in our banters as we help you not just live life to the fullest, but live it to the healthiest.
Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Health and Wellness Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Alex Fry. Guys, the holidays have been over long enough now that most folks have taken down their decorations. And yet, I don't know about you guys, but I am still stressed out 24/7. I think the cheese week between Christmas and New Year's Eve dulled the stress for a little bit, but it's definitely back in full force. So today I want to talk about stress as it relates to wellness and how to approach it in a well-rounded way that is most likely to help you solve the problems. I call this the holistic perspective. You've probably heard about it in wellness circles. So addressing the body and problems with mental health, emotional wellness, and physical health in a way that recognizes that they're all connected to each other. I went to grad school for anthropology before taking a sharp right turn into podcasting, so I like to take the anthro approach to life, which is to view everything as an interwoven part of the whole in that holistic perspective. Stress is no different. Its root, treatment, and prevention require a combined approach through different types of wellness. So similar to how I approach it, the World Health Organization does as well. Their definition of wellness is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not just the absence of disease or infirmity. So I think a lot of times, especially in the US, we think of healthcare as being actually sick care. So you don't go to the doctor for healthcare, you go generally when you're already sick. So our perspective on wellness and health is a little bit twisted sometimes. So we want to make sure that we're not thinking about this just as an absence of disease, but rather as, a check-in with yourself. How are you doing today? How do you feel physically, mentally, socially, emotionally? Are your needs being met all around? So today we're going to talk a little bit about that. Situations and events that cause stress vary from person to person. What stresses me out is not going to be the same thing that stresses out my best friend or your best friend or you, and that's totally okay. The important thing to keep in mind is to pay attention to your body when you're stressed out. We all know what the mental feeling of being stressed out is like, but when it gets to the point where it's resulting in changes in your behavior, like if you're withdrawing from your friends or you're avoiding situations or conversations that you think are stressful, then it might be time to think about talking to somebody about that or finding a creative emotional outlet to try to work through it. Other things to keep an eye out for are tense muscles. So go ahead right now while you're listening, drop those shoulders, unclench your jaw, do a little neck roll. You'll feel better. If you're having headaches or trouble sleeping or you're just tired all the time too, go ahead and you can talk to your doctor about that. You need a break sometimes. Everybody does. That is what time off is for. So take your boss up on it and get a break. Other things you should keep an eye out for are changes in your thought patterns. So that's something that we're always with is our thoughts. So it can be a little bit different and difficult rather to understand when something has changed there. But if you're having trouble concentrating or you are having more difficulty making decisions than you usually do, or you don't feel as confident as you used to, then you might want to talk to somebody about it. Go exercise. Exercising is a great way to help boost your dopamine levels and just overall general wellness. Now, I know that getting up and going to the gym is the least fun part of that. So try just wearing your tights and your workout gear if you're not sure if you're going to be able to work out that day. If you're trying to work your mental and emotional wellness up to the point where you're comfortable going to the gym and you are going to actually put on your sneakers and go out the door. So that's one of the things that I do, is I dress like I'm going to the gym even when I am just hanging out in my house. Instead of wearing pajamas, I will wear gym clothes. And then if I'm like, maybe I should go to the gym, then I just go ahead and put on my sneakers and walk out the door. It sounds very small, but part of self-care and wellness and addressing stress is taking the little wins. So it might seem small at first, but all journeys start with a single step. So just getting you in the right mind frame by dressing for it can help a lot. They say to dress for the job you want, not the job you have. You can do the same thing for your wellness. Dress for the wellness that you want, not the level that you're at right now, and you will slowly change that mindset and start working your way through it. Make sure that you're also considering your feelings in this. So your emotions matter, and if you're feeling more worried or confused, or you're just feeling angry all the time, or you're easily irritated, or you're feeling overwhelmed with home stuff or with work, or you're starting to feel like you can't solve this problem on your own. Feelings of helplessness can indicate that you're stressed. And if you feel like you can't cope, then you've definitely gotten to the point where let's start doing some self-care. We'll talk more about ways to reduce and resolve stress later on in today's segment. But right now, what I want to talk about is who is most likely to be more prone to stress. So everyone can be stressed out by the environment and everything, but since it is holistic and it is related to hormones in addition to our environment, it does affect different types of people in different ways. So they did a 2017 study on the state of women's wellness and found that 43% of the 3,000 American women who were surveyed said that they were stressed and anxious, and that those were their top threats to their personal wellness. Some 55% of women who are millennials ranked stress and anxiety as being some of the top negative factors on their personal health in addition to their general wellness. And a lot of older generations said they also considered it to be very negative. So 44% of Gen Xers, so my mom's generation, and 33% of baby boomers also found it to be a big problem. So stress isn't something that we can really grow out of or learn how to master completely as we get older. We can only learn coping mechanisms and increase our resiliency, how we react to stress, and how easily we can overcome it. Teenagers are also more likely to be stressed. As we discussed earlier, it's partly hormone related, but they have a lot going on. Everything for them is fresh and new. So it's a lot of experiences all at once. So the environment and their hormones set up the stage for more stress. Last year, Gallup also released some results from an annual poll of more than 150,000 people globally and found that Americans are among some of the most stressed out people in the world, with some of that stress being on par with Greece, which was previously leading the world in the most stressed out adults. So in the United States, about 55% of adults said they had experienced stress during a lot of the previous day. And to put that into context, 35% globally was the comparison. So the rest of the world is about 20% less stressed than Americans on average right now. They also found that being under 50 and earning a low income were correlated with stress. And I think that's news that surprises no one. Financial stress is definitely a big one for many Americans, as money is what our social system is based off of. So it's very understandable that people are stressed out about money. People are also stressed out about life in general. So when you're under 50, you are still finding your way in life, and everyone is on their own personal timelines. So that's very understandable. All right, we're going to go ahead and take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about stress and physical wellness.
Are you looking to learn more about the latest trends from the fitness world? Are you confused by all of the different trends that are out there? The GSMC Fitness Podcast is the place for you. The GSMC Fitness Podcast is the place to come for people of all skill and interest levels. Join us as we explore the latest trends in the fitness world. Does that new exercise really work? Should I try yoga? Whatever your question, chances are good you'll find an answer on the GSMC Fitness Podcast.
Before the break, we were talking a little bit about stress and wellness and how to view those holistically so we get a well-rounded perspective on what's causing the stress, how to recognize it, and how to resolve it. Now we're going to talk a little bit about stress and physical wellness. Everyone I know has the flu right now. I went to McDonald's today and the cashier was coughing and I was like, I'm going to get the flu, but it's worth it for that double quarter pounder with cheese. Now you may be thinking, Alex, what are you doing admitting to eating McDonald's and fast food when you are hosting a health and wellness podcast? You can have a little bit of McDonald's as a treat. I normally eat very healthy, kale chips, all that jazz because abs are made in the kitchen. But every now and then you can give yourself a little treat. So I don't eat it every day, but today was my treat day. So I had that today, and then I hung out with some friends, and they were all hacking and coughing, and I checked Facebook, and like 3 friends said that they all had the flu, and then I had a meeting with someone, and they had to cancel it for the flu. Now, honestly, I'm not very surprised that a lot of people have the flu right now. It's flu season. The weather is very cold, and if you are already incubating a virus or bacteria of some sort, it's more likely to really get you right now. Also, we just came off of the holiday stress, and that is going to promote it as well. And if we don't catch the illness early enough, then we don't know not to go into work or not to send the kids to school because it doesn't start really manifesting as being obvious that you're sick until you're already infected. So it's understandable. But another thing that can really get you at this point is repeated stress. So repeated stress can make you feel unwell. If you've been like, I'm so stressed and I'm sick and tired, that's how it works. So chronic stress has been linked to actually manifesting illnesses. And I don't mean manifesting in the way of, I'm going to manifest my dreams this year. I mean, it can literally make you sick. So the way that works is it triggers these cells in your body that are associated with initiating immune responses, and they're called cytokines. And these cytokines flag down your immune system and go, hey, there's something wrong here. I need you to give us an immune response. So if you are literally feeling sick because you have been so stressed out, take a break. That is your body telling you, hey, you are literally making yourself sick with stress. Strangely enough, short-term, non-repeated stress has been linked to immune boosts. So if you ever found, like I have, that you tend to get sick on your day off, you make it through the rest of the week, and then you get to Saturday and you wake up and you're like, oh no, my head is congested. My stomach doesn't feel good. I was fine yesterday. Why am I having to waste my days off being sick? That is because you got the immune boost from your stressful work week to help give you the energy to get through the day. It's an evolutionary response meant to help you survive and to thrive. And that is why you get sick on your days off. Sometimes science is a bummer. The good news is that even though stress can be correlated negatively with physical wellness, you can also take physical wellness into your own hands to help reduce stress. There have been tons of studies related to exercise and wellness that indicate that exercise boosts your mood, it reduces anxiety, lowers your stress levels, and can even improve cognitive function, like your memory, your problem-solving abilities, and your ability to focus and pay attention. So that is due to our brain's production of the chemicals dopamine and serotonin. So our brain produces endorphins. I'm sure you've heard that mentioned before when you work out. Dopamine in particular is a critical neurotransmitter for regulating your memory, your reward and attention, and your motivation. Serotonin, on the other hand, affects your mood, your emotions, your sleep, and appetite. The great news is that exercise will promote the production of both of those. Regular exercise is great and it helps you feel a lot better, but I totally understand that in the modern world, we do not all have time to be exercising a ton every day. So the Surgeon General recommends about 60 minutes per day. But, don't think of it as having to go to the gym. Exercise can be a lot of different things. So you're carrying the kids around all day. You're spending 30 minutes giving horseback rides and playing hide and seek or tag and running around. Totally counts, mom and dad. Totally counts. It may seem counterintuitive to say, hey, you're having trouble sleeping? Go work out. But it's true. So working out also promotes blood flow to your brain. So if you're getting that 2 p.m. slump, go run some sprints in the parking lot at work. Do it safely, of course. And people might look at you a little bit funny, but you're fit and well. Who cares what they think? People do that at my old job all the time. There was one guy who would lift weights in the parking lot, not bench pressing or anything, but free weights. And at first, everybody was like, that's very strange. But after a while, you're like, oh man, John, you're looking swole. Great job, man. You look very healthy. I see you eating that kale salad. So they're more likely to be supportive than anything. They might think it's odd at first because it's violating a social contract. But social facts, as Emil Durkheim put forward, are these unspoken rules that govern how we act in certain contexts. But social facts are made to be broken. It'll be fine. So my Fit and Well for Life professor in college is actually who taught me about that, about getting over that 2 p.m. slump when I was going to school and taking 21 credit hours at a time and I was working 3 jobs. I was stressed to the max, but also so tired all the time. And one of the things that really helped me was more exercise type activities. So getting more into anything. So I had got an active job and that helped a lot. I was digging ditches literally for a while. And that really helped my self-esteem. I started getting swole. Well, I got toned. Let's be honest. I got a little toned. And I was getting a lot more exercise, hauling buckets of dirt and stuff around. Now, you don't have to go out and get a job that's going to be more physical, but you can go and, just spend 10 minutes. If you're spending 0 minutes working out a day, 10 minutes is fine. 10 minutes is a step. Any step is a step. And that's totally okay to start where you're at now. Interestingly enough, serotonin is actually produced in your GI tract. For 95% of it, the other about 5% is produced in the brainstem. So you can actually have other physical symptoms in addition to mood issues and fatigue if your serotonin is a little out of whack. So it can actually cause carb cravings. So if you're craving a lot of carbs, it's going to go into this positive feedback loop where you're continuing to crave these carbs and you're going to have some weight gain and everything that is not necessarily desirable depending on what you're going for in your fitness and wellness mission, but it can cause these issues. So if you're starting to crave carbs more and you're not working out, you might want to think about it. So you're having physical and mental manifestations of the serotonin deficiency. Also, since serotonin is made in the gastrointestinal tract, it can cause digestive issues, including IBS and constipation. Another hormone associated with stress is cortisol. That's your primary stress hormone. It increases blood glucose, so sugars in your bloodstream. It enhances your brain's use of glucose, and it increases the availability of substances that can repair your tissues. So your bones, your cartilage, and also your muscles. So this cortisol curbs functions that would not normally be necessary for a fight or flight situation. So it's like you're stressed, we need to narrow it down to what's causing it. So it's going to alter your immune responses. It's going to suppress your digestive system, because the most important thing that you're trying to do right now is to survive, is what your brain and your body thinks from that stress, because it cannot tell the difference between physical stress versus mental stress versus, hey, I am in physical danger. It's kind of like the body's alarm system. And along with adrenaline, which is released when the cortisol is saying, hey, we are in trouble right now, the adrenaline increases your heart rate, it elevates your blood pressure and your energy stores. So it's giving you the opportunity to literally fight or flight right now by shutting down everything else. Now, normally your body's stress response is going to limit itself, and once a threat has passed, then your hormone levels will return to normal. But with repeated chronic stress, it's going to keep you feeling constantly like you're under attack. And you might not be aware of that mentally, but since your cortisol levels and your hormones cannot recognize the difference between different types of stressors or perceived threats, then it's going to keep doing that in order to try to save your life. I could talk about physiological responses to stress all day, but it is time for a short break. When we come back, we're going to be talking about emotional stress.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back. In our last segment, we were talking a little bit about physical stress and how that manifests holistically with your body. So next, in our last segment, we talked about physical stress and how to consider that holistically. Now we're going to talk a little bit about emotional stress. So too much stress or repeated stress can manifest both physical and emotional symptoms. We've already discussed depression and anxiety a little bit because they are both physical and emotional symptoms. Remember, everything is holistically interconnected. So we're going to look at some of the emotional signs of stress, as well as another neurotransmitter called norepinephrine. So we've already covered dopamine and serotonin in the physical section, but now we're going to look at norepinephrine. So this neurotransmitter helps moderate your mood by controlling your stress and anxiety. So it sends signals between your nerve cells to alert them to what they need to do next, but it also acts as a stress hormone. So when it's released in the bloodstream as a stress hormone, it's doing it in response to the brain perceiving that a stressful event has occurred. So the next thing it's going to do is adjust the way that the brain pays attention to and responds to events. So that can increase your heart rate. It can trigger more glucose into the blood, and it can also increase blood flow to your muscles because your muscles need more blood to carry more oxygen in order to be more effective in aerobic exercise as well as aerobically fighting off somebody in that fight or flight response. It also increases alertness and speeds up your reaction time. In addition to those, norepinephrine has also been correlated with mood and ability to concentrate. So low levels of it can lead to conditions like ADHD, depression, and very low blood pressure. So we mentioned in an earlier segment about how stress can reduce your ability to solve problems or to make decisions. This is why. So according to the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychology, ADHD can affect areas of your brain that help you solve problems, plan ahead, understand other people's actions, and control impulses. Norepinephrine has been strongly tied to causing symptoms of ADHD. So if you're starting to feel that you're having trouble solving problems that you should normally be able to solve, or making a decision or planning ahead, you might have low norepinephrine levels. So looking at it this way, we can see that stress and our reactions to it causes chemical changes in the body that alert your brain to promote fight or flight responses. So part of that is also tied to your emotions. Now, emotions can cause a lot of stress, and they can reinforce stress, but they are adaptive from an evolutionary perspective. So science supports this, that your emotions are there to help tell you what events and circumstances that your senses tell you are going on in the world mean to you. So emotions help you extract meaning or extrapolate meaning. So just like hunger motivates you to find food, emotions help guide you to care for other needs like socialization, safety, companionship. Those things all lead to survival and reproduction, which is survival of the fittest. So emotions are not literally chemicals, but they come from chemical reactions taking place in the brain at any given time. You have millions of them going on all the time, and those chemical reactions help you stimulate your emotions, and we can kind of measure them in physiological responses. So like if your heart's pounding or you're sweating a lot or blood's rushing to the face, like when you're embarrassed or you're nervous, or when adrenaline is released and you get stage fright, or you suddenly have a burst of energy to run because you're on that runner's high. Those are all expressions of your emotions. The two most common parts of the brain associated with your emotions are your limbic system. So that's where fear, anger, sadness comes from. That's in your amygdala. The other one is going to be your frontal cortex. So the front chunk of your brain, like where your forehead is. And that's associated with feelings of happiness or pleasure. Normally your emotions cycle throughout the day. You don't normally have one main emotion all day long. They're pretty transient, but when they become intensely negative or they don't change, that can dramatically affect your brain chemistry. And in turn, that can also affect your behavior. So if you are feeling irritable all the time or angry, you're probably stressed out to the point that it's upsetting the balance of your biological chemicals in your brain. On the one hand, you may be thinking, oh no, I cannot fight biology and chemistry. That would be wrong. You actually can. So since these emotions are associated with these chemical responses, they can be adjusted with behavioral training. They're habits. Emotions are habits. And just like any other one, they can be made or they can be broken. It's all about how you choose to react in the moment and becoming consciously aware of how you are reacting and stopping yourself and going, hey, maybe I'll not go there. So like yesterday, my ex-boyfriend, we are still good friends, and one of our old roommates, we were all supposed to be hanging out and going out to dinner, and they left without me while I was in the other room. They didn't even knock on my door. They sent me a text message, but I couldn't see it. So I got really upset about that. My feelings were hurt. My go-to when my feelings get hurt is just to get mad about it. Because being mad about it tends to just feel easier than feeling hurt. But I thought about it for a little bit, and I was like, hey, you can't be doing this podcast and not practicing what you preach. So I processed it a little bit, wrote down my feelings, and went ahead and hit them up and just asked them to bring me a cheeseburger back on their way home. And by the time they were back, I was totally fine. So about probably 20, 30 minutes. Now, it wasn't entirely easy to cycle through that, but being consciously aware of, hey, this is an emotional reaction, and do I want to ruin the rest of my own day with my friends? Really helped me put it into perspective and helped me dial it back. I wasn't wrong to be upset about that. That was hurtful and unnecessary, but sometimes people just do thoughtless things, and it's not that they are intentionally being mean. So it's important to catch yourself in those emotional habits and help yourself reframe the situation. Now, one way you can do that is there is the 21-90 rule for forming habits in behavioral psychology. So you commit to a goal for 21 days to form it and then 90 more to cement it. Now, that is easier said than done. I have tried that with my gratitude journal, and I made it for about 2 weeks before Christmas hit, and then I dropped it for a week. But I'm back on it, and you can start something like that too. Get yourself reminders for it. Get yourself some sticky notes if you need to. Get some glass markers, write them on your mirrors, whatever you need to do to help remind you. I read a book a while back called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. He was an Austrian neurologist and a psychologist who survived the Holocaust, including Auschwitz. So he said something that really stuck with me. This is a life-changing book for me. Victor said, everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. So this statement in the book is all about how humans can create their own meaning of life and have a measure of control over emotional responses, if nothing else, in any circumstances, including something as terrible and heinous as what he went through, just by making small daily choices. It does not necessarily mean you're going to thrive in that moment while you're fighting through it, but you're going to survive and you're going to build on those habits by making those daily choices until you get to that point where you are thriving. So life is 10% what happens to us and 90% how we react to it. I'm sure most of you have heard that saying. It sounds really reductionist to frame it that way, as if it's all in the attitude. I'm not saying that. There are definitely environmental issues, and in effect, you can't control how your boss acts towards you or, anyone else's moods around you. You can just focus on yours. But wellness is holistic, remember? So it takes a combined approach in addressing social stress, emotional stress, and physical stress to really beat it back. Some people have mental health issues, though, such as anxiety or depression. I'm in that boat with you guys, and it can make it neurochemically harder to overcome stress than it is for others, and that's okay. All journeys begin with a single step, including those to health and wellness. We are going to take a break here in a minute. I'm going to hydrate. I recommend that you guys do too. If you haven't had your 8 glasses today, go get you one real quick. When we come back, we're going to talk about stress and socializing.
The GSMC Life and Happiness podcast takes you on a journey of exploration. We'll discuss tried and true methods alongside the latest trends of how to best live your life to its fullest and happiest. From psychology to meditation, science to self-help books, the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast will help you to discover what makes you happy and how you can live life being the best you possible. Download the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Before the break, we were talking about stress as it relates to emotional wellness. So now we're going to talk about stress and socializing. We've been going over how anxiety and depression are both linked to emotional stress and physical stress, but social stressors and negative relationships can also contribute to stress-related disorders like anxiety and depression. A few years back, some scientists did a stress study with mice, and the researchers kept some mice isolated from the others, so they were not socialized, and another group of mice were kept together in community pens, so they were able to socialize with each other. They decided eventually to place the unsocialized mice into the community pens with the mice who were socialized, and those mice in the community pens tended to be more dominant as well. The unsocialized mice were more submissive, and they got very stressed out by being forced into these social situations after not having been socialized. So the scientists found some correlations between blood pressure, brain chemical changes, and those immune system molecules we mentioned earlier called cytokines that send up a flare to tell your body to produce a response similar to being sick. Now, although the study was in mice, they have a lot of similarities to humans, and that is one of the reasons why they are used in research studies. So socializing can be harder for some than others in humans, just as it is in mice. And the big difference between introverts and extroverts isn't whether you like people. Liking people or not liking people is a matter of misanthropy. Misanthropes do not like people. The difference between introversion and extroversion is rather whether you feel that your peopling battery, as I call it, is more depleted or recharged from group hangouts. So I feel that I need a lot of emotional bandwidth as an introvert in order to go out into social situations and engage with people who I don't normally know. Now, if you're one of my best friends, come in my house, we'll all wear Ninja Turtle PJs and hang out and watch TV or play Marvel Legendary or something. But if I'm going to go out and meet people I don't know, then I need to have some introvert time and store up the ability to have these interactions of small talk and stuff. Recognizing to what degree you are introverted or extroverted can be very important for individualizing your self-care. No self-care or wellness plan is going to look the exact same for every person, and knowing what benefits you the most is an important step in that. So if going out recharges you, go out. If staying in and reading a book recharges you, then if you are in desperate need of some recharging, you're going to need to do that route instead. It's okay to be a shy mouse, and it's okay to be a super extroverted mouse, just as long as you know yourself and you recognize what you need for your wellness. Interestingly, though, socializing has also been shown to boost your levels of oxytocin. That's the same bonding hormone that's shared between mother and child during breastfeeding, and that is shared between partners during sexual intimacy. It's positively reinforcing, so that means the more time you spend with people you enjoy socializing with, the more you're going to want to spend with them. And that can be in person or over the internet. Chatting with your friends online or texting them counts as socializing. It is human contact. Even if it's not physical contact, it's emotional and it's social contact. So get your Warcraft on or just FaceTime someone you care about. I have FaceTime most of my friends in the past few years rather than talking on the phone or texting. I have very flat thumbs and I don't like texting. It's much easier for me to type on my computer in Messenger or something, or to go ahead and just FaceTime them. It makes it so much easier. I'm allergic to phone calls though. Don't call me. So the importance of that is just recognizing what forms of socialization I prefer in my own life for my own wellness. So if I want to socialize with friends, I might play some video games online with my headset on or typing to them if I'm on the PC, and that is enough for me. A lot of my friends I haven't seen in a long time face to face in person, but we will FaceTime or Snapchat or something every day. And that's totally fine by me. It actually helps a lot, I think, in the modern world where we're all widespread and we're traveling more and we're living in this global society, to find new ways with technology to establish social wellness. So you find the way that works best for you and go for it. One of my friend's grandmas is actually agoraphobic. And when I was in high school and community college, we would take her groceries and anything else she needed, toilet paper, new pots and pans, whatever, just so she wouldn't have to leave home because she didn't want to interact with the outside world, but she was okay with us coming in. Now, the cool part about my friend's grandma is that she played World of Warcraft. I'm not kidding. She was about 62 years old or so at the time, and that was her favorite way to interact with people. This is when Facebook was pretty new. People were still using MySpace at the point when I was in community college. But this was his grandma's favorite way of interacting with the outside world. And for her, that was the socialization that she needed. Agoraphobia isn't the same thing as social anxiety. And as humans, as primates, we are evolutionarily programmed to seek out group membership. So being part of a group helps make sure that you're able to stay alive. By cooperating and being with part of a group, it will increase your chances of survival and your chances of reproduction in the wild and throwing your genes into the future, as you probably heard a lot in biology classes. So that's why even though she didn't want to leave her house because it stressed her out, she still welcomed socialization just on her terms. And that's because socialization also decreases your sense of loneliness. It can promote feelings of safety in that group membership and also belonging and enjoyment. Socialization also directly affects how our stress levels ebb and flow. If you have a good support group, then it can help you be more confident in your ability to cope and your ability to bounce back, your resilience. So it's very important to have some form of socialization in whatever form that may take for you. Socializing also helps reduce your stress by spending time with others to direct our energy outward. If we're directing our energy inward, then we are prone to cycling through our emotions and getting more upset as we ruminate on things and just kind of stew. But if we are out with friends, it's going to help us take our mind off of things. And that sounds very simple to say, but it's very important to keep in mind. People who are socially connected feel wanted, included, cared for, and like they can rely on other people for help and emotional assistance in the future. It's all self-reinforcing. So if you can talk through your problems and share your feelings with a friend or two, that can help decrease your stress. It's also going to strengthen your sense that your life has meaning and purpose, like Viktor Frankl was talking about, and to increase your mood. So all of those factors can help protect you against other negative effects of stress. Keep in mind that quality rather than quantity does matter when it comes to interpersonal relationships. It's 2020 now, guys. Let's keep the relationships that serve us and let's dump everything else that doesn't. Relationships, friendships are like relationships with significant others. You do not have to keep them forever. It's totally okay if it doesn't work out. That doesn't mean that the other person's a bad person or that you're a bad person. It just means that it was not a great friend match. And that's totally okay. People grow at different rates. Sometimes you don't get to grow together, and that can be sad. But having 2 or 3 close confidants for successfully reducing stress and talking about your issues is much more important than having 20 people that you can maybe talk to or are kind of reliable. It's important that you also have a give and take with these healthy relationships to keep them healthy. People who are helping you also want to feel like you will be there for them and they want to feel like you need them. Everyone likes to feel needed and to feel wanted. So if you are feeling super stressed out, I know that hanging out with people does not necessarily seem like the first go-to, but it can be very helpful. We're going to take another break right now, and when we come back, we're going to talk about some ways to resolve and reduce this stress.
Still on the search of that one true love? On the limbo in this crazy world of dating, marriage, relationships? Well, listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Relationship Podcast, your one-stop podcast for everything about relationships.
So in our last segment, we were talking about socialization and stress. And now we're going to finally talk about how to resolve some of the stress. Your stress solutions are going to depend on what types of stress you're experiencing and the types of activities you like. So if you're stressed because you're overworked, maybe don't pick up any more projects or hobbies to handle that. If you are stressed because your job is highly physical and you're very tired all the time, maybe don't pick up more exercise to try to combat that stress. There are a couple things that you can try though. You can try altruism. So altruism is just helping people out without expecting anything in return. And I say people, but that can be the full benefit of society. It can be helping animals, addressing environmental concerns, doing any kind of volunteer work. Much like socializing, this helps you focus your attention outwards instead of stewing and cycling through your thoughts. It can also help you gain some perspective by seeing other things that are going on in the world around you. It also increases the activity of the neurotransmitters associated with reducing anxiety and depression. So the best part about this one is it costs $0 to be kind. And it doesn't have to be anything grand. You can do something larger, like a single day with volunteering with a group like Habitat for Humanity, or sometimes they do prolonged projects and you can go every Saturday or Thursday, just depends on what area you're in. But you can also do smaller stuff. Small acts of kindness do matter. You can get creative with it. So bake brownies for a friend who's having a hard time. If painting is one of your hobbies and your friend likes your art, you can do a 2-for-1. Go ahead and paint your friend a portrait or do a pastel, whatever your thing is, and give it to them. It's going to help you by participating in emotional creativity and expression. It's going to also boost your oxytocin levels from the act of socializing, and you're helping out your friend. So that's also going to make you feel nice. You could also bake some brownies for them, go to the park and let them talk it out. These are all around wins. Kindness is a solid answer to pain for yourself and others. It helps retrain your brain to reframe how you look at life. Another thing that you can look at is yoga. So if you are like me and you like to live your life with maximum efficiency, yoga is a great way to get exercise while also focusing on your mind's wellness. So 2-for-1, my friend. You could also get a non-monetized hobby. You don't have to be good at it. That's totally okay. I know a lot of people don't pick up hobbies because they're afraid of failing at it, or they try it the first time and they're like, oh man, I'm terrible at calligraphy. Well, yeah, calligraphy is difficult to learn. It's an art. It's going to take a little bit. A 2015 study conducted by the social network Linkagoal found that fear of failure was a large problem for 31% of 1,083 adults surveyed. That is a larger percentage than people who are afraid of spiders, 30%, being home alone, which was at 9%, or even the paranormal at 15%. I'm afraid of failure too, guys. I'm just going to come out and say it. My name is Alex, and I am afraid of failure. But that is something to push through, because courage is not the absence of fear, but rather the ability to push through it. So we're going to go ahead and stay afraid of things together, and we're going to do it anyway. It's what Carrie Fisher would have wanted us to do. So I want you guys to think about that a little bit. You don't have to monetize all of your hobbies. Hobbies don't have to be hustles and side gigs. Do something non-monetized that you might not be good at yet. That's totally okay. You know what's a lot of fun? Abstract art. Can anybody tell you that it's bad art? Nope, not objectively. All art is subjective. Go for it. Start learning that instrument you've been thinking about. I've been playing my guitar for years, and I am still just a mediocre guitar player. And that's okay, because the purpose of that for me is as an emotional outlet. It's not meant to make me money. It's not meant to do it in front of other people. It's not even meant for a party trick. So it's okay if I'm not great at it. It's just a vehicle for emotional expression and releasing stress and helping with wellness. Another thing to keep in mind is gratitude. So I know this might sound kitschy, but Oprah herself has said this. People always tell her that she has so much to be grateful for, and so it's easy for her to be grateful. And she said, no, I have these things because I was already grateful for what I have. Gratitude is not about wishing for more things. It's about being happy with what you do have. And that doesn't mean that you have to settle for anything. It just means be grateful for the things that you do have. Think about the things that you're grateful for. I recently started a gratitude journal. Highly recommend it. So you just sit down each day and write down 3 things you're grateful for. Now, I like to expand upon mine a little bit so I can remember why I'm grateful for it and really think about it and process it. But you can just write down 3 things if you want. You could stick them in a jar if you'd like. We're at the beginning of the year. You can just backdate them to the first and go ahead and put in 2 or 3 a day. 1, if that's where you're comfortable starting. And then you can take them out and look at them at the end of the year. Or don't. It's up to you. But I found it to be very helpful in giving me some perspective on my life and in really focusing on the things that I do have gratitude for. So even when you don't have everything going on for you and you're having some problems, it can really help ground you in the moment. Another thing to keep in mind is that it is okay to pick your battles. Does what's going on right now need to be addressed? Does it need to be said? Does that need to be done now? Does it need to be done by you? If that answer is no, I want you to say it with me. Not my pig, not my farm. It is totally okay to evaluate whether the stressors in your life are worth continuing with and whether they can be changed. It's totally okay. You are allowed to make decisions that are important for your own wellness. Ask yourself what makes you happiest and prioritize that. It's okay to prioritize some happiness in your life. It's okay to take time for you. Go grab you an iced coffee and blast some Janelle Monáe in the car. You get to pick your own battles. You get to pick your own rewards. Go for it. You guys could pick up meditation if you want. I found that one's not necessarily for me. I have a lot of trouble sitting still. My form of meditation is closer to like kayaking. So I'm in the quiet and I'm by myself and I can just relax and think, but I'm also doing something that's active that works for me. So that's my meditative state. It doesn't have to be sitting there going, It can be whatever mantra that you want there to be. There are so many different types out there. There are so many different meditation apps. Try them out. See if you like it. Go to a local meditation center. Just go on to YouTube and have somebody do a guided meditation for you, or sit there and just focus on your breath. You can make it however you want it to be. Whatever gets you to that place of wellness is the best fit for you. There is no one size fits all when it comes to stress and wellness. So another thing that you can do, speaking of apps, is online mental health assistance. There's an app for everything. There are also websites for it. So you can go look online for places like BetterHelp, where you can communicate via the internet with a therapist, and they will help you that way. You can do talk therapy. There's all kinds of different things. A lot of them are on sliding scales. So how much money you make will dictate how much you have to pay. That way, if financial stress is one of your major stressors, there are other ways around that. You can also sometimes go to the local colleges that offer counseling as a program, and they will let their master's students go ahead and counsel people for free. It helps the students get practice, but they are under the guidance of a professor. There are a lot of different resources out there. So don't settle in your journey to mental and physical and emotional wellness and escaping stress. We're going to take another break right now, and when we come back, we are going to talk about my top list of things that stress me out and how I deal with them. We'll laugh, we'll cry, but we'll do it together socially. So hang tight, and we'll be right back.
Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? The GSMC America Still Beautiful podcast is a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts America Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today. Download the GSMC America Still Beautiful podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back. In our last segment, we were talking about ways to resolve stress in general. So now we are going to talk about my personal top stressors and how I deal with them. I think you guys will find a lot of these to be very relatable. We're going to have fun with it. Remember, it's about reframing our perspectives. So we're going to choose laughter. So one of the top things that stresses me out is going to be managing finances and student loans. Where are my millennials at? Just kidding. I know Gen Xers, you guys are in the same boat too. Gen Z, welcome aboard. So managing your quality of life versus stability can be very stressful for anyone in any part of the world. It is a global problem of having financial stress. Now, some ways that I try to deal with that are calendaring my due dates for things. I have it right here on my calendar to do my student loan paperwork this weekend, because it is coming up for the reassessment of it. So I keep that in mind. I like to also keep spreadsheets of money that I spend, especially if I'm going to be splitting that with a partner at a certain point. So Christmas gifts, my ex and I would just put all of the Christmas gifts that we bought and for whom and how much into a spreadsheet. And then at the end of it, we could tell who had purchased what and could just split it all in half. Makes it super easy. Then you don't have to worry about any of it. Part of that stress for me is just the sheer concept of the possibility of owing people money. So for me, spreadsheets are the way to go. We also do it in Google Sheets. So anyone who is involved in that purchase, who has Gmail, which is pretty much everyone at this point, I think, can go ahead and interact with it. The next thing that stresses me out is going to be people. So I'm an introvert, but I like people. I'm not a full misanthrope, don't get it twisted. But it is important for me to make sure that I have the emotional bandwidth to hang out. If I do not have it, I might not be as fun to hang around. And I will outright admit to my friends ahead of time, hey, I'm not good company right now. I need some me time. And they go, oh, okay, yeah, you're going to take a bubble bath and watch Fast and the Furious again. I'm like, yes, that is exactly what I'm going to do. Thank you for understanding. So I'm getting to a point with my closest friends where I can say thank you for understanding or thank you for accommodating that rather than apologizing. That's part of that reframing, that the way that you look at the world. So start thanking people for their understanding or their patience instead of just apologizing all the time. It's going to help reframe that for you and for your friends. Another thing that stresses me out is icebreaker exercises. Oh man, I've made it to 30 now, and I've been through many of those in college and in the workplace. I'm not sure what kind of cruel extrovert trick that is. I think they were created by the same people who decided to start all of our days at the crack of dawn. So cruel, but them's the rules. So with icebreaker exercises, sometimes I like to go ahead and if they say we're going to do an icebreaker, I try to propose my favorite ones. So by favorite, I mean the ones I hate the least, but that would be like 2 truths and a lie. Something that's more fun, that's like an improv comedy exercise rather than trying to stack spaghetti. to see who can make the tallest spaghetti tower and put a marshmallow on the top of it. I've done that one in real life. So there are a bunch of different icebreakers. I have a go-to now for introducing myself in the workplace or in brand new settings where they make you go around. They're like, oh, tell us a little bit about yourself. So I've picked out a couple things that I think are the most relevant for new people to know about me, or the most interesting, that also keeps it to under a minute. So it's like an elevator pitch more than anything, but it suffices. So find something that works for you, whether that's finding one that you don't dislike as much as the others and proposing it and being like, hey, can we do this one instead? A lot of times people are going to be pretty agreeable to that. They want you to be comfortable. That's the whole point of the icebreaker. When I used to be a manager, sometimes my boss would tell me I had to do that with all 40 of my employees. So I like to give them options. So if you have a few employees and you can ask them right there on the spot, you can give them a couple of options and say that you're also open to ideas, or ask them to select the one that they like the most and go with what most everyone says. Or if they are distributed, like my team was remote, then I would send out a Google form and just be like, hey, go ahead and rank the top ones that you're interested in on here, or put in any of these that you definitely don't want to do. So getting other people's input on it has been very helpful for me. Just kind of trying to understand each other and myself has been very important for my wellness in the workplace and reducing my employee stress in addition to my own. The next one we're going to talk about is going to be managing relationships. So this is the big one. I am newly single, you guys. My partner of 8 years and I broke up recently, and we told his parents over Christmas. The day after Christmas, technically. We weren't trying to ruin the holidays, but it was time to tell them. Whew, that was a lot, you guys. Very emotional. Even though we've been broken up for a while and we talked about it, that was a stressful conversation to have, because I love those people, and it's always hard to have difficult conversations with people that you love, especially if you know it's going to hurt their feelings. But sometimes you just have to go ahead and do it. So we talked about it together. We talked about what we wanted to tell his parents. And then we went ahead and waited till the moment felt right to us. And he said, hey, I think that I want to go ahead and tell them right now. And I said, all right, let's do it. And it was fine. Sure, there were tears, but they were healthy tears. Everyone was emotionally processing what was going on. And overall, even though it was stressful leading up to it, the actual event of talking to them once the conversation started was not that bad. Sometimes you just have to go ahead and go for it. I know that's not a fun way to think about managing it, but along the way, as I was managing the stress of the breakup, I did other things, like I painted and I played my guitar very mediocrely, if that is even a word. You get the gist. I just kind of got all of the emotional processing out, and I also journaled a lot. But if journaling isn't for you, you can try a couple different things. You can try exercise if that's more your thing. Pick up some cooking classes or pick up a cookbook. Remember, those abs start in the kitchen, and now is as good a time as any to go ahead and start learning. I say that about any time, but also, I mean, we're like 9 days into the new year, so now's an excellent time to do it. But for context, for why this is exceptionally stressful for me, the last time I was single, you guys, was in 2011. Tinder did not exist. Everyone was still playing Farmville, although if I'm honest, sometimes I still play Farmville. Judge me, if you will. Stargate Universe and Smallville were still on the air back then. And New Girl premiered that year and has ended in the time that I was in that relationship. So full sitcoms have emerged and lived their lives in the time it has taken me to begin and end this relationship. So navigating this new world is exceptionally stressful. I am sure that a lot of people listening right now are familiar with the new world of online dating and the new dating culture. I am an old-fashioned girl from Appalachia. I don't want to meet strangers on the internet. I'm still back in 2011 when everyone was afraid of meeting people on Craigslist. So coming around to that is kind of a lot for me, but I'm taking it as a challenge. Growth is not ever really from a place of comfort. In order to really grow and develop as a person, we have to go outside of our comfort zones. So this is going to be an adventure. And that is one of the ways that I am dealing with this managing relationship stress. I'm viewing it as an adventure. It is a new frontier in my life. And I might not be ready to start dating yet, but I am making steps every day to work on my emotional wellness and my physical wellness, and I'm socializing more to address that aspect of wellness. I've been working out. Ladies, you know what I'm talking about. We all start working out and cut our hair after we have a breakup, and that's where I am at this point. So that's good. I'm moving forward, and my ex and I have worked very hard to cultivate pretty much divorce goals. We're trying to be divorce goals, and we work well together. So even though we are not in a relationship anymore, we don't have any stress from each other at this point because we were viewing it as a partnership. So reframing how you view things can really help. And getting out and just spending time reconnecting with your friends is also very helpful. As Viktor Frankl says, when we're no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. So some of our previous health and wellness topics have expanded on the solutions I've presented today some more. Check out our past podcasts on yoga and mindfulness for some deeper dives into how to try those stress relievers in your life. Thank you for listening to the GSMC Health and Wellness Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'd like to ask you guys to please remember to subscribe to the show, and writing a nice review always really helps out. If you can please also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you kindly and have a good night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Health and Wellness Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.